have to.
Okay, two things there.
I'm just trying to understand here.
Understand.
I'm not on the commission or nothing. I just want to know.
If you write your charter and you take a section out of the township code and rewrite it into your charter, then it's really not the township code. It is what your charter says, even though the wording's identical.
I understand.
That part there you can change. If you just reference the code, which you could, then you couldn't change it. The code would have to be changed by the legislature. And a lot of times, what happens when they do with the code, they do just reference the sections, like Article 32 in the code, which is taxation section. They would just reference that section. So literally, when you got to that section, you'd go over here and read that. And that's the taxation section that says that you can levy 3 mills for fire protection. Okay? Well, you decided you wanted to go 5 mills. You couldn't do that because you referenced it. Otherwise, if you put it over there as 3 mills, then you could. If the commission established, must all the commissioners agree, or just a majority? Any recommendation commission must be adopted by a majority of the entire commission. Not those voting that night, it's of the entire commission. That's one of the things that second-class townships are different than boroughs, cities, counties, most home rules. We need a vote of the entire board. Now, on 3 members, the majority of the board is 2, and you need 2 for a quorum, so it's in there. But when you go to 5, you need a majority of the board. So if only 3 show up one night, you need all 3 to vote the same way for something to happen. In a borough of 9, you need 5 for a quorum, and the majority of that is 3. So theoretically, 3 people, 3 councilmen in a borough can set the policy for the whole borough, which is really a minority of your governing body. So, but on the commission now, you need a majority of the commission. So again, how many people are running? 7, 9 are running for it. If you have 9, then you need to have 5 vote for it, or vote against it, whichever way the motion is. So if you only have 5 show up, which is the quorum, all of them have to vote the same way. So that's, something that is different, but it's making it such, the law is making it such that it is theoretically the opinion of the whole. Sir?
Okay, that aside, sure, you can have the majority vote on a commission, but technically then when it comes down to it, the township is going to vote whether they want the charter anyway. So whether it's 3 or 5 vote for this position, it's not a final vote because it's still going to get to the township.
Well,
process.
Yes and no. The commission will make the recommendation to the township.
Right.
If you don't have the majority vote, and let's say they wanted the majority vote to send it back to you. If you don't have the majority, you don't get the recommendation. It does not come back to you.
Well, but I'm saying the majority has to vote on it. So if there's something they don't like, that's what I'm saying. So you don't just focus on the study commission making this up. It comes back down to everybody, the majority of the township then has
Then it's going to be the majority of the township.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's theoretically 51%.
Right.
And again, just has to be at an open public meeting. What will the township become when we need changes of signs, letterhead, insurance, official name? Depends on the recommendations of the commission again. People look at that and say, well, geez, that's the least thing. No, actually that's in a lot of cases when municipalities want to change something, you'd be surprised. Name changes are a big thing that goes on. A number of years ago, there was a individual who wanted to change Dairy Township in Dauphin County to Hershey Township, Dauphin County. And one of the big arguments against it was the cost factor of changing everything over to it. That was a home rule question, but again, just changing a name can be an issue. Again, it depends on the recommendations. You adopt a home rule charter, you make a name change in the charter. You could still go by Highland Township. You don't have to change the name. So all your signs, what's on your trucks, could stay the same. You could then otherwise change it, and you want to be the municipality or Lowland Township. Yeah, then you're gonna have to make changes. Just things that happen. If it's this question was asked at the fall election, but you could put that into the spring election here. I did not change these slides just for tonight. The transition plan effective dates would be part of the charter. If you pass the study commission, it goes and for a home rule charter, and you pass the charter. In that charter, it should spell out a transition period, so that you go from a township under the code to your charter. And that again is something that the commissioners will put in, and it's spelled out in the law. Must they hire a manager? This is a question we get all the time, because in a lot of cases, a home rule municipality is a large municipality. Must you hire a manager? No. Period. Done. You do not have to. Your charter could spell out that you will have one. That's a local decision.
We don't have to have a manager.
No, you do not. You can theoretically, with your charter, if you take some of the provisions out of the township code, you could run similar to what you have here. You may spell it out that you're going to have a council, like I said earlier, like a strong mayor council, which mayor could be even a manager, strong manager / council, weak manager / council. It's what is there. But the question that we get frequently, well, do we have to have a manager? Yes, we have to have a manager. No, you do not have to have a manager. Some home rule does create the position for manager. It's the same way, actually, literally. Highland Township has a secretary-treasurer. Secretary-treasurer. But Highland Township, as a township under the code, could establish a manager position and have a manager. It's there. So the home rule is really no different from that aspect. Again, if you do it, you have to spell out, what that position is. Will our liquid fuels revenue or any other revenues change? Liquid fuels revenue will not change. Liquid fuels revenue is based on two things: the population of your township compared to the population of the state, and road mileage compared to the state. The liquid fuels that comes back to cities, boroughs, and townships is about $380 million. Half of that is based on population, half is on road mileage. So that will not change. Other state revenues will not change. You have the national forest, which doesn't count, but in places where you have state game lands or forest lands, there's an in lieu of tax payment, same thing. It comes back. It does not change if you go to home rule. You do not lose any of your revenues that you possibly would get from the state. The only thing that it does change is your local tax rates, as we discussed before. You have the same taxes, but you can change the rates. You just can't create new taxes. FEMA, that's a federal flood insurance. Does that change if you go home rule? Again, the answer is no. If you're under FEMA requirements, and most of the state is, even though you're up high, you have to have flood insurance in certain circumstances. Home rule, township, city, borough, doesn't change. You have the ability to do it. fines, consequences for, filling the reports, different for home rule municipalities. Again, no. Same thing, the municipality has certain reports that have to be filled at the beginning of the year with the state in order to get your liquid fuels, get anything else. Again, there's certain dates. We just had one date changed in the township code dealing with some filing that has to be advertised. That's not a state law, that's under our code. So that will not affect you. But other ones like the liquid fuels, and Christy could probably answer that, or I know she could answer it better than I can, what those dates are. But again, home rule, code, it's the same. That's it. Except for, yes sir.
Good question. If a home rule charter would pass, and let's just say there's gonna be a 5-member council, what happens to the current sitting supervisor?
Depending on how the transition is written, those supervisors, the board of supervisors would go by the wayside, the new ones would come in. Most likely, well, what will happen is you're going to have an election. And that's why you have a transition period that's spelled out. At the election, supervisors could also run, as well as anybody else in the township, could run for that new board, new council.
If that was confusing, could you say that again?
One reason you have a transition is because the board of supervisors will go by the wayside.
If that's written into the charter, is that what you're saying?
Charter has to spell out what the transition is going to be.
But we
Okay.
can keep the same supervisors if we wanted.
Well, there's two things there. One is, yeah, you could, but you're going to vote on them. What's going to happen is your council, whatever you call that new group, are going to run for office.
We're not talking about the study commission, though.
No. We're at the charter, if I'm following the gentleman, we're at the charter stage. The charter says you're going home rule. And it's voted on by you and you pass it. They go home rule.
But they can write it in the charter to retain the supervisors that are there. They can do that.
They could,
Okay.
but, and again, what happens too frequently when you do something like that, it creates an issue. And that's why it goes to the courts. In other cases where it was challenged, the court says everything. If you go, forget about home rule here. If you wanted to go from second class to a first class township, the courts actually appoint the first board that goes through.
This is solely to defeat an injection well, a waste injection well.
I understand,
That's
sir,
the reason.
but I'm not here for that.
So you're saying that if they went home rule, they're in essence doing a recall on the supervisors?
No, it's not a recall on the supervisors.
Well, no, but in essence, that they're doing, they're eliminating those three?
What happens is you're doing away with the board.
I was under the understanding they would run out their term and then.
You could do that under the transition. You
Okay,
could.
You don't have to though.
No.
Okay.
It depends on how the charter is written
Yeah,
out.
no, I was under the understanding because of state law that you couldn't replace an elected official.
No, and what happened, the problem is, under state law, you can do it if you go through that process, which I said is very difficult. But what happens here is how your charter spells it out, you're doing away with the board,
Okay.
not necessarily the individual.
What's the board?
Excuse me?
What
The
is
board of
the board?
supervisors.
If the charter chooses to do that.
Charter, well, if you're going to still call it a board of supervisors, you're still going to have to put in the transition part of how the board of supervisors under the code becomes the new board of supervisors under the home rule charter.
And it can be the same people.
They theoretically can, but you're going to have to go. But so if you go and change the election, right now there's 3 supervisors. They're elected for a 6-year term. One runs every,
And they can all
election.
stay the same.
Well, but you change it. You can change it that there's going to be 3 supervisors, but they're going to run for 4-year terms. I was in Delaware County on a home rule issue, and that's one of the things that they were doing there. They were changing, literally staying a lot with the code, but they were going to change from their 5-member board of supervisors to a 5-member council elected on 4-year terms, staggered. 3 one time, 2 the next. That doesn't work out there. That's why the transition documents, as the gentleman said, take care of that. It's spelled out by that commission. That's why, in some cases, as the gentleman in the back of the room was saying, get it done in 2 months, is that okay? Yeah, but these are the kind of things that go into play that can make it go longer. But yeah, you can, same people. Yes, ma'am.
In our town, we're not trying to get rid of our supervisors.
Understand?
And it isn't just for the injection well. We're trying to get the people to have a voice. And so if there's something that isn't being agreeable, that it goes to vote for the people.
Then, yeah,
Because
and
this
you can
is how
write
the
that in
United
your,
States is supposed to be based on. People are supposed to have the rights, not corporations. We need to go back to the old way where people have rights, and we don't.
I can't argue with you on that issue or get into it. That's, between you and the courts and the federal government, the way that's set up. I understand what you're saying. I just, again, that's not why I was here. This guy, gentleman first.
I have one question. If everybody's saying that home rule is so bad and everything like this, why are you seeing more areas around here going to home rule? Like St. Mary's is home rule. They've been home rule for years. Warren, they're home rule. They've been, DuBois is home rule. Youngsville is home rule. You're seeing all
I don't
these-
know if some of those are home rules. I
Yes,
know
they
Warren
are.
went from a borough to a city.
Might not be, but Warren is, Youngsville is, and St. Mary's.
Ferguson Township, State College.
Ferguson's been
You're seeing a lot more coming home
home rule for years.
No, 2 years.
No, Ferguson. No, sir. Ferguson's
They
been.
just voted it in 2 years ago.
Ferguson has been home rule since 1976.
Yeah. That's
They just voted it in.
in '76.
Ferguson Township,
Yes.
Ohio State College?
Yes, sir. There's still a township of the second class that is home rule.
That was,
Middletown Township in Delaware County.
What did Ferguson Township just vote in there?
They may have voted a change to their home rule charter. They could have done that. I don't know.
Very city.
that was my question. Cities, counties, boroughs, and municipalities, right?
Townships.
The list of home rule it's pretty big, isn't it?
71.
There's I was going to say there's out of 25, almost 2,600 municipalities.
Okay.
And you're not saying it's good or bad, right?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Has anybody became home rule and went back?
Yes, there were a
Yeah.
couple that have. There was a township, when I started with the association, I hate to say it, 40 years ago, one of my classmates at University of Pittsburgh became the manager for a township in Allegheny County. And he called because there was a provision that wasn't in their charter and asked, do you revert back to the code that you came from to take care of that issue? And again, the answer was, depends on how your charter is written. If your charter says that's what you do, yes. If it doesn't, no. Their charter at that time was 4,200 pages. I mean, he actually said you couldn't do anything without going to the charter. They did, within a couple of years, revert back to the second-class township code.
So basically what you're saying is if they voted this in, didn't like it, they could go back.
Yeah, there's a time period, I think it's 5 years, that you have to stay with the charter. And that's so that in that time period you can work out any bugs that you may find. Because again, no matter who you put in as the commissioners vote in, they're human. They could overlook something, they put something in that doesn't work. So the law basically says you can't go in this election and out the next. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify something that P.S.A.T.S, they have an educational conference each year.
Yes.
Annual one. And Marcellus Shale since 2010 or 11, and recently Shell Gas and Anoni and other gas and oil companies are sponsors for that. So could there be some kind of a bias here possibly? Of your position on
No,
the gas company?
because others are also sponsors that, you know, like Verizon's and Comcast and all those. Literally, again, we have to follow the courts the same as you do. Back in 1976, there was a federal court case because we excluded a sponsor. We left her in and said you couldn't, and the federal court said you can't do that. It was dealing with Columbia Insurance case. Now we also offer trustees insurance as a service. You can get the township can get insurance from trustees or Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever. But in that case, you know, we left trustees at the conference. We said no to Columbia. Federal court said, Actually, and we had to pay restitution fee. And that's a court case, and the only reason I know that one for heart because I was only with the association a couple months and I got to sit through the whole thing. And we lost. So Marcellus wants to do it, Shell, AT&T, Comcast. A few years ago had a similar issue with Verizon and Comcast because of getting into wireless transmissions and that, and you know, people down in the southeast, which were having a big problem with them, asked the same question you just asked.
Yeah.
And we got the same answer.
When I was like reading the articles like from 2009 and 10, I seen that like a lot of the supervisors were actually upset when they were going to Hershey or Cannonsburg or wherever the thing was.
Well, you guys did push Act 13 pretty good. You were all for it. And
We worked on it.
well, I just meant just so they all know that you guys pushed that.
We worked, and one of the
lobbying for
things,
it and
yep, and one of the things we were working for was the impact fee, and I'll tell you, we're still working to keep the impact fee if they pass a severance tax. Because from our position is, if they're gonna drill a well here, you guys should get the money. It shouldn't go to Harrisburg and go down to the southeast. I live in Lancaster County, East Enfield Township. I don't have a Marcellus well in my backyard. I'll never have one. There's no Marcellus gas, there's no Utica gas.
You're a lucky man.
Well, I can't argue one way or the other. I got some other problems, but besides that. But the thing is, I shouldn't get revenue. They're coming up here and digging in your backyard, good, bad, or indifferent. You should get the impact fee because of the impact it's putting on you. That's where we're at.
I liked how they about the taxing of their shell gas and everything. How that was trying to go through PA and it didn't end up going through, so they don't have to pay taxes on the property or like everybody else does.
Yeah, that wasn't under Act 13. That's under other laws that are there, and it's true. I mean, even with pipelines and that are going through, which does affect me. Not my township per se, but Lancaster County. They don't pay property taxes, and that's an issue there. But again, that's not a home rule or whatever. You have the Marcellus, we have the acre situation with nitrates in our waters. Same thing.
You got new plants too, though.
Yeah, we got one of those too. And I'm downwind of it. So, up until TMI,
We don't have any
what,
new plants.
I had hair on my head, yes. I used to blame it on my kids, they're too old and they're out of the house, and now I blame it on other things.
Got a question there.
Oh, yes, ma'am, sorry.
I had a question asked to me today, and I had no idea how to answer this one. Let's say a borough is home rule, and the neighboring has a township, and they want to consolidate that township into the borough that's home rule. Can they do that?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't matter that one's home rule or one isn't. Actually, we'll go in two scenarios. Say the borough is just the borough under the borough code, and the township under the township code. The process, there is a process that you can go through, one, just to consolidate or merge into a new municipality. You could still be called the borough of whatever, or the township or whatever. The Center County, a couple years ago, there was borough merged into the township, surrounding township. It actually was a donut hole. They went through that process. Second thing is, if the two of them, again, under the code, want to merge and go home rule, there's a separate process for that. And you just follow that procedure. So really, when you're voting for two things in the beginning with the study commission. What you're voting on is, do you want to merge with XYZ municipality? It could be a borough or a township. And do you want to have a home rule study commission? So you have two questions in the same thing. If one is a home rule municipality, like the borough, as you said, no different. They go on, and in this case, the question, though, has to be written in such a way is, does the township want to merge into the home rule borough? So that the citizens in the borough know what they're doing, and so does the township. So, but when you do mergers and consolidations, both sides have to vote in favor of it. So if the borough would say yes and the township says no, it doesn't happen, or vice versa. So.
City of St. Mary's did that, Benzinger.
Yeah, and that was before they went home rule.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. That was years ago. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Not to change this, I have to ask you this question. It's kind of burning me up here. You're the assistant director, so I know you know a lot of what goes on. To your knowledge, do you know of anyone from P.S.A.T.S that told our township that they recommend we drop the ordinance? Personally,
I do not know of anyone doing it. If they possibly might have said that, as the question was asked to me, which if they did, they shouldn't have, but in their opinion, they may have given their opinion. But unless you talk to our solicitor, our attorney.
I heard that.
Well, no, I'm not saying you personally, I'm just you being general there. Unless they actually talk to the solicitor, he would be the only one that could give, theoretically, a legal opinion. And again, normally, we do not give legal opinions. We would refer back to your solicitor. For that, we would just give advice. Now, if, as I think it was you asked me the question, my personal opinion, you know, as I said, my opinion, 50 cents will buy you a Coke in my office. I will not give anybody my opinion. If you and I were talking privately, I probably would give you an opinion. But in a group,
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I just don't have that authority. If I did, I'd have a black robe on and a little gavel, and I would, you know, be setting that. But
And Elam, I'm glad you explained that, because I had a fight with two supervisors over that same thing. We called P.S.A.T.S, got an opinion from somebody and said that was P.S.A.T.S. And I mean, it was a meeting. They swore up and down that you guys were.
Well, I appreciate that people think that highly of us. I can't argue that. I think we do a good job.
Well,
but
we like to think you're on our side, and you are, correct?
I am on the side of the township, and sometimes that's not always on the side of the people, but we follow the law. We will tell you what the law says. And even some supervisors call us. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we have sometimes is let's contact P.S.A.T.S and get an opinion. And there's 3 young ladies who work directly for me in the legislative and the policy side. And they'll get one of them, and she'll give the response. And the supervisor doesn't like that response, so he calls back and tries to get another one. And that one doesn't, so they go to the 3rd one. And they may even get me at times. And, they fish to get the answer they want. Or they ask the question, and the person will say, the law says this, 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 and in the conversation, they push out everything but the one part that was said. I'll give you a good example with myself. Years ago, I got a request from a supervisor in Northampton County. I responded in writing to him. I was then subpoenaed into court. On the witness stand, the attorney says, oops,